All right, welcome back. It is, 28 November and Monday, and we're going to get back into this video. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of half it up here. Like the first half of the hour we're going to do the videos that I find, and then the second half we're going to go into testimony and witness statements. All right, so here we go. This is more of this fantastic tactical perspective by Brian Edwards. I believe he was a former policeman. Of course, this is Dealey Plaza, UK. Great website and great videos here. So really good stuff. It's showing you not like direct first-hand evidence, but it's showing you if I was an assassin, this is how I would do it. And this guy is right on the money. I did previous videos before I even saw this video, on how I would see it, common sense perspective, and then now watching his videos, it all kind of lines up almost exactly. We're thinking along the same lines here. So again, there's only one or two ways, as my dad would say, to skin a cat, or gut a fish, or whatever the expression would be. It's basically going to be the same way, no matter whether you're an accountant or matter if you're an NFL football player. It's all going to be the same thing, the same way. Okay, so here we go, and here it is.
Information about where the target was relayed to them by somebody with a line of sight on the president who was riding in the motorcade. There's no other way they could be sure that that's where the target's going to be all the time. It has to be somebody close to the president so they know where he's at. I think that's just from a perspective. I think there were people in the motorcade that were suspect as far as helping pull this thing off. One of them is this car. This is the pilot car. Now, if you want to do a little research later on, find out who was in this car. I can tell you who's in it, but as far as their responsibilities, they're supposed to be clearing the road, making sure there's no traffic problems or pedestrian issues or whatever. But, excuse me, this car is driven by, and I'm checking my notes here, the driver is Chief Lumpkin, Assistant Chief of Police, George Lumpkin. In the car is two detectives, two homicide detectives, Turner and Schenkel, and then there's a Lieutenant Colonel George Whitmire, commander of the local Army Intel Reserve Unit. What the hell he's doing there, couldn't tell you. He's not listed. Whitmire is not listed on the DPD case report. I've got that, and his name is not listed. And the other person who's very curious of why he was there, his name is Jack Putterball. It's P-U-T-E-R-B-A-U-G-H. He's an employee. Are you ready? He's an employee of the Department of Agriculture. What possible reason would a Department of Agriculture guy be in the motorcade in the pilot car? One of those people, I think, was relaying the information to...
So, I'm just throwing out something here. I do seem to remember that from, Nigel Turner's The Men Who Shot Kennedy, that there was some kind of investigation of I don't know if it was the Texas Department of Agricultural or it had to be federal, because a Republican committee was investigating corruption in the Department of Agriculture with these agricultural loans. Had something to do with one of the guys under Johnson. Right now the name escapes me, but if you go back and watch that, you'll see there's a guy, House committee Republicans are conducting some kind of investigation about the Department of Agriculture, and exactly when the Kennedy assassination happens, and they've got an informant or a guy who's spilling the beans about how the system worked. There were some kind of agricultural credits or something like that, and then this guy was explaining how it was all a scam. But that may have something to do. Maybe maybe the Department of Agriculture is safeguarding its its investment or something like that, letting them know that, okay, he's dead, no, he's not dead, get the guy to shut up. But yeah, I agree with them. There were spotters along the way. It's hard to put someone in a car though, because they're going to have a limited amount of intel, line of sight. So it's got to be someone either in the news motor pool, or in the front. It's someone along that way. Or it could be a reason that this car sticks out as a big white car, because all the spotters that are physically located along the way, all they have to know is that car is coming through first. And then from there, they've got 20, 30 yards behind them for the president's limo. So that's a good reason to have this car, big white car, so the spotters along the way can easily identify the president's coming 10, 20 yards ahead of time.
To the planners and go, okay, we're coming around the corner, or we're 5 minutes ahead, or expect us here at this point. I believe this car is full of bad guys. I don't think the two detectives knew what's going on, but I think this guy, that Lumpkin and the Whitmire and this Cutterball guy are players. Of course, the information could have been provided by the car in front of the president's limousine. Chief Curry, Bill Decker, and the two Secret Service agents. Any one of those folks could have had a radio and called out, okay, we're turning the corner.
Another thing he hasn't mentioned yet is the bad guys are definitely going to be monitoring the radio traffic. So they're going to be listening for Chief Curry. He's going to be saying, and he may not be involved in the assassination at all, who's going to be saying, okay, we're going past Main and Eckerd. We're going past Main and whatever street. We're turning at Main and Houston now. And that gives them 10, 20 yards behind them. Okay? Also, even though it's 1963, they do have tracking devices, radio receiving tracking devices that they can monitor. You've seen them all in the spy TV shows of the 1960s. If they got them in TV shows, they definitely have them in real life, because that just follows that the real science would come out before it would be talked about on movies and TV. So again, they're going to be monitoring the Secret Service communications, the Dallas Police communications, the sheriff communications. They're going to know where Kennedy's at all times. They're going to have spotters in the crowd, and say you've got a guy every block, okay, and then the guy who's at block 7 is going to go click, 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 7 times, click, 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 click. That means yes, no. 2 for yes, 1 for no. So number 7, you can track that without saying anything. The president's car just passed location spotter number 7. It's still a go, like that. Or they could have, fake radio communication. Hey Bill, can you go over and check out the dog on Houston and Elm or whatever? And then each, or Jack or whatever, they have code names. Say they have a code name for the president as Dolphin or something, or dog, or cat. You could say, hey, there's a cat passing on Main and Elm, or something like that. There's all kinds of little things that people can do. When you go back and listen to it, it doesn't sound like anything.
On Elm Street, I think it was real simple to do. Somebody was in close proximity to the president to provide that information. Well, when the president enters the kill zone, or the target enters the kill zone, there has to be somebody who's coordinating the shooting, and that's a fire control officer. This guy is in direct communications with the shooters via secure communications, and he's also in close proximity with an unobstructed view of the assassination site, so that he can coordinate everybody to shoot, hold, move, whatever. I think there was ample opportunities to have somebody in a fire control position on any of the tops of these buildings. They have unobstructed views of the motorcade. They have.
And if I was going to do this, I would be here. This is the post office building. It would take nothing for a federal agent or someone to get on this building here. If you're at this position, you have all the angles covered. You have the president coming here. You've got the turn here. You can see the shooters, see if they're in position. You've got a clear view of the killing box, or the kill box.
You have unobstructed view of the entire area. Okay, you've got somebody coming close to you. Take off, go to the south, go to the north, whatever. These are critical parts of this plan. Where are the observers?
And what he said just makes sense, because say you've got a guy up here and he's firing and the police get out and run toward him. You're going to have this guy seeing that, and he can coordinate with the assault team to counterattack before the police get there. See, because the police are only going to be on radios, they're not going to have line of sight, they're not going to know who's who and where's where. So this guy could call in for the assault team to take those people out and counter-assault them, and then allow for the shooters to exit.
And I'm going to show you some pictures from what it looks like from the perspective of the tops of some of these buildings to give you an idea how much of a panorama they can see. They can see basically 180 degrees all in front. I mean, all the action is going to take place in here. There's no reason to have to look back over here. So every position here looks into Dealey Plaza. This is from the top. This is a drone shot that I did that shows the book depository, the
wow.
text building, and the
look at that.
From this position, you can see everywhere. I mean, you can.
Yeah, look at that. Right into the kill zone. I mean, like you're almost right on top of it. You have a God's eye view of the grassy knoll, the Texas School Book Depository, the shooter window, the Dowtex building, and the jail. There you are. The only reason that firing from the top of the jail is because they'd have to bring those weapons up through there and then escape. And it's much more likely to get caught by the police there or the sheriff.
You can see past the overpass. You can see all the way out to Stemmons Freeway. Any one of these three places would have been a perfect place to put a fire controller or a shooter. Both could have been there at the same time. One of the things that's critical is that once you get on top of this building, nobody's going to look up. I mean, I've been in law enforcement for 22 years. 9 times out of 10, suspects will run up a tree or hide in a higher place because nobody looks up. It takes too much energy to look up. So high ground is great. If you can put somebody up high, nobody's going to see them. Nobody's going to look up there. Nobody's going to be able to return fire in a high elevation. This is from the top of the courthouse, from the county record. From the sheriff's office. There, that building. Sorry, it's a little fuzzy, but it's from the top of the sheriff's office. I mean,
wow.
What a commanding view! You can see more than you really need. You can see all the way over the Lee Bowers.
See, you can even coordinate with the people that are in the window, right there. You can even see them shooting. You can almost even see the people shooting from here. You have line of sight of the other two shooters. Easy, commanding view of the kill zone right there. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if there was a shooter on top of that building.
Place, you can see the highway, you can see the railroad, you see everything that you need to know about what's going on over in this road. That would be a great place to put somebody. This picture hasn't been seen before. I don't know if some of you may have seen it, but as far as I know, it's not been published anywhere. This is from inside the terminal annex, the post office. This is like the 4th or 5th floor. This is not, I don't know if this is the same office where Harry Holmes's was, but he said he told the Warren Commission he watched the motorcade from his office with a pair of binoculars. Well, this is kind of the same perspective. You can see a lot of the Dealey Plaza. You can see Elm Street. You can see anybody or anything coming and moving on that road. Another great spot is the little red courthouse. Jean Hill said that she was taken to this part of the courthouse, and it was happened to be a judge's chamber, and I can't remember the name of the judge, but I've been inside that, and it's a pretty good view of Dealey Plaza, but it's a little low. You want to have a higher elevation. This is the clock tower part of the little red courthouse. It's a great spot. Nobody's going to see you up there anyway. If you're in the shadows, nobody's going to see you. Here's the view from that. What a great
Wow.
spot. You can see more than you really need. This is a great spot for maybe I don't think a shooter was here because the target's on the other side of the car, but a great spot, a great place to have up.
Yeah, I doubt this because see this cone here from the top of the building. It's right where the kill zone is at. So you probably have a spotter up here with a radio of some kind.
Observation, security. So as a law enforcement officer, let's talk about aiming points. As a law enforcement officer, the way I was trained, the way I trained my guys, was center of mass. You shoot in the middle of the chest, you're going to hit an organ, you'll probably stop the action. But I'm sure you've all heard stories where people have been shot 15, 18, 20 times or whatever it might be, and they're still moving. Because obviously the bullet or the object didn't strike a major artery. But I can guarantee you, if you hit a person multiple times in that center of mass, they're going to slow down. I don't know if it'll kill them, but it'll slow down. But one way to ensure that you're going to kill your target is to go for a headshot. Obviously, that's what we're aiming at. We're going to aim at the smallest, even though it's the smallest part of the body. It's got the brain. If you can stop the brain, you've got a death right in front of you. It's an instantaneous death. If you can sever the brain stem from the cranium, you're good to go. And so these are the aiming points. If the target is coming straight at you, you shoot. This is the square you want to put around it. You'll sever the brain stem at 1,800 feet per second. It's over with in a second, blink of an eye. Profile, you shoot for the side of the head, somewhere in this area. And if it's direct profile, you shoot through the ear canal. You want to put one in his ear. That's what we always used to practice. Put one in his ear. And you drive that bullet right through that ear canal. It's done. Back of the head, anything low from the top down, it's good. It'll sever that brain stem, and he'll know. He won't even know what hit it. So, I'll give you an example of what this looks like. This is an egg This is a 9mm slug going through an egg, and you look at the devastation and the cavity, the damage done to the skull. Can you imagine what it does to a human skull? I mean, it's done. You're dead. You will not survive that. And I always love the testimony that our inspector got from one of the doctors, and said, well, if the president had survived his head wound, do you think he would have been a functioning president? Well, you ask a stupid question, you're going to get a stupid answer. And you go, well, yeah, that part of the brain in the back right, the cerebellum, kind of controls motor skills and his cognitive reasoning. I think he would have been able to function, but he probably wouldn't be able to read or walk. How stupid can you be? If you hit a guy in the head with a bullet, it's done. There's nothing left to say. So the action, obviously, is to remove the commander-in-chief with as few shots as possible. And remember, we got to stick with the 3-shot scenario. That's what the shot caller, the fire control officer, he's got to make sure that only 3 volleys are fired. Now, that's not to say that some of these weapons were not silenced or suppressed. I believe they were. I believe multiple weapons were using silencers. The ones that were not silenced were the ones behind the president, so that people would say, oh yeah, I heard the shot coming over my head up high. That was a reason that those weapons would not have a silencer. I think half of the weapons that were used that day were silenced weapons. And remember if you haven't read Bill Greer, the driver of the car, He said that the bullets came into the car like a bunch of bees. And he specifically said they sounded like a bunch of bees. In other words, they were not, the crack of a rifle bullet. These were small, subsonic, high-velocity rounds that were hitting the car, hitting the president. That's what he heard. But, of course, they went on to something else like what...
And here's something a lot of people don't know, but if you use a silencer on a rifle and you're to the right or the left or behind the rifle, you're barely going to hear anything. Okay? You may hear a noise like a snap. If you're in front or in the area of the cone here, the area where the sound's coming out, you're going to hear a lot more. Okay? You may even hear, if you're right in front of you, you may hear of a shot. So if Greer is here, he may have heard that shot coming from the right. But people to the right and left, or front and back of him, are not going to hear that much. Especially with all the traffic and the other shots going off.
What were you wearing that day? Nobody cares. And then the final part of the tactical operation is the evacuation. Get the heck out of there, and you probably want to have your guys go the opposite direction where everybody's going to be coming from. They're all going to, hopefully, surround the book depository. You want to go the opposite direction so that you're not caught up in that net that was probably going to be, took them 45 minutes, but still, you don't want to be close to that. So let's talk about the 4 C's of a tactical operation. I learned this at sniper school, and I learned evacuation. Get the heck out of there.
So that's almost exactly what I just said there. They would have vans or trucks here. They're not going to go too far because you're carrying all that equipment. They didn't leave equipment behind. Or maybe they did. I don't know. But they'd have to have some kind of secured hidden location and then come back for it later. But yeah, you're definitely with the back of the building here, and then you've got another location here, the Daltex building, and then you've got this location here. He's probably going to come up and have some kind of vehicles here. They're going to take off in this direction and that direction. Alright, hold on one second.
Let's talk about the 4 C's of a tactical operation. I learned this at sniper school, and I learned this at, on the job, basically. What are the 4 primary C's of a tactical operation? Well, the first one is the control of the high ground. High ground is better. The higher, the better. You have an expanded view. You have control over what's going on. Command of firepower is the second one, and I'll talk about these individually. Covering, concealment, and communication. Those are the 4 components that are automatically involved in any operation in a tactical perspective. They have to be there. Without one, they don't work. Sun Tzu, the great Chinese general and strategist, wrote in The Art of War, says, "He who occupies the high ground will have the advantage in all battles. The enemy will delay attacking from a lower position." Then he went on to say about concealment. Concealment is best achieved from the high ground. High ground is where you want to be. If you can be above, and when I say high ground, I'm talking about 10 feet and above. 10 feet above the roadway and above is high ground. So that's why the Secret Service, sitting on top of the White House, that's why they sit on the roof. They don't sit on the ground. They sit up on the roof. And I always like going there when I go to Washington. I always go down to the south lawn and I wave to them because I know they're looking at us. That's what they do. That's what they're supposed to do. So take the high ground. So here's a real world example on that. In 1960, former Marine, United States Marine Charles Whitman climbed the bell tower at the University of Texas in Austin, and from an elevated position of 310 feet, killed 11 people and wounded 31 in less than 30 minutes. Now, how would you attack that? How would you get him, I had to watch the video of how they actually finally got up there. They had to physically climb 310 feet on the staircase on the inside get out on the pulpit and walk around until they found him. He had a 360-degree, mile-and-a-half view from that tower. I mean, you might as well just hide underneath the manhole cover because you're going to get hit. I mean, there's no place to hide. Las Vegas, Nevada, 2017, same thing. 300 some feet up in the air. Stephen Paddock, this deranged guy, checked into his room on the 32nd floor, and 59 people were killed. Over 500 people were wounded or injured trying to escape. And this was his view. He had a target-rich environment. They had a rock concert in this park. It was only about 500 yards away. You're just asking to be killed if you're in this area. The guy had nothing to do but just sit up there and pepper rounds 360 degrees or 180 degrees, just killing all these people. So shooting from within a structure is a key part of a covert type ambush. These guys, these are just military pictures of guys shooting from inside a building. If you know the Kennedy assassination with any kind of reference, you know that this guy, Howard Brennan, I had to put him in Warren Commission witness. He's an actual Warren Commission liar. But Howard Brennan, he was sitting on the wall as the president's car. This is Houston Street, and they're making the turn onto Elm. Howard Brennan is right here. He's a construction worker. He's got a construction hard hat on. You can see him in the crowd. He's sitting up on that wall, and he's facing Houston Street. He's facing to the east. Well, as the motorcade turned and went down Elm Street, he's looking over his left shoulder.
All right, I wanted to stop right there and say one last thing about this picture. That Kennedy, it's obvious there was a shot before Kennedy got shot, because you see two things happen. You see this little girl right here? She's running this way, following along with the car, and she's screaming something, saying something to Kennedy, and she gets about right here, and you can see her just come to a stop, like she's heard something. And then you look over at Kennedy, and you see Kennedy's got his arm up, his right arm up, he's waving, and then he starts to put his arm down, and then he starts looking to the right, because that's where he hears the shot. That's the first shot. Kennedy isn't hit when he emerged, and by this time the car is about right here. When he emerges from behind the sign, then he's hit. He's hit there also, but here he's not hit with that first shot. Where did that first shot go? A lot of people are saying there is a street lamp here, and that when he fired down onto him, he hit the street lamp. Then there's the trees, and then Kennedy's hit again, or hit for the first time. I'm thinking that this shot hit the street pole, the street lamp, whatever this is, bounced off, and then went over and hit someplace else. But you can obviously see the girl in this Zapruder film. She's running happily along, waving at the president, and then all of a sudden she stops, because that's when the first shot rings out. It doesn't hit Kennedy. It hits the pole, bounces off. Kennedy, he knows something's up because he hears the shot. His arm is up waving, then his arm comes down, and then he looks to the right where he hears the noise coming from. And then this is about right here. And then when Kennedy emerges from the street sign, he's been shot through the throat. So the first shot's here. The second shot may be coming at this angle from the picket fence area and hits him in his throat right before he hits the sign here. Umbrella Man's over here, and the Cuban Radio Man is here. All right, so we're going to stop here, and I want to note my time because I always seem to forget, but I'm going to go into some other things, and then I'll go into witness statements also. All right, now on this one I want to go through a couple of pictures here. This is the second floor lunchroom. Just want to spot out some things here. Here's the Coke machine. Now there's a doorway But the doorway that Oswald was spotted at is on the opposite side here. So Oswald would have had to come down, gone into this break room, fumbled for change, got the Coke, and then opened the Coke and was on his way back to the door when the Dallas policeman confronted him at the doorway on the second floor. You see there's a representation of the Coke bottle. It's the kind that you have to pop the cap off the top using this over here. Takes a couple of seconds of strength. So Oswald was supposed to go down, I mean, think about this. Oswald is firing. After he fires, he's got to clear the weapon of all his fingerprints. Then he takes the weapon over to the boxes and hides the weapon behind the boxes, goes down 4 flights of stairs without being seen by Victoria Adams, goes into the lunchroom, walks over to the Coke machine, pulls out his change, fumbles for his change, puts it in the Coke machine, gets his bottle, pops the top off his bottle, starts to drink it and look all calm, cool, and collective. Remember, he just shot the President of the United States, and walks back to the second floor lunchroom entrance. Okay, and then turns around like he's walking away. All within 90 seconds. Impossible. Let's see. This is the sniper's nest. You see? Now, how anyone can fire that rifle with this pipe up against your left shoulder, I don't know. Very, very difficult to do. And look at this. The sniper's nest doesn't even block him. Anyone could come in here and see his whole body right here. Maybe he's sitting on this box, using these boxes as, a mount or something. Not a very good position there. So I guess this is the 6th floor. There's the sniper's window. This is another angle. Yeah, I guess so. Someone put the boxes here so they wouldn't be seen. Now, another question I have is, how is someone, one of the witnesses are sitting over in the street, how are they looking up and seeing 2 men standing in this window? And you can tell this window has been moved because you see the photos from outside during the assassination, and this window is about halfway down there. And then these shells are found over here. See, the thing I can't understand is if you're firing and you're ejecting the shells are going to pop off this way over here. But yet, they found the shells lined up over there. Doesn't make any sense. It's another view. Okay, no, they're over there. So the shell, one of the shells was found over here. Okay, there's 1 there and 2 here. I'm just going through these. This is the 1st floor. Northwest corner of the 1st floor. There's the stairs there. Rear entrance, 1st floor. Here's the entrance lobby. So what we're looking at is two sets of stairs here. There's a set of stairs between the first and the second floor. This is the one that the motorcycle officer would have been running up. There's the main entrance. There's the rear entrance to the domino room. There's the domino room. There's supposedly Oswald's jacket right there. Oh, excuse me. There's the Coke machine right there. It's a little closer, but still. And there's the position of the rifle when it was discovered. Alright, so this is what I want right here. So this is the first floor. See, there's another stairs here. There's the domino room there. And stairs over here. See, so if someone was on that 6th floor, they'd have to, if a shooting team was on the 6th floor, they would have had to come down those stairs right there, walk across this loading dock, and over to a car, a waiting car here. There's the 2nd floor. See, and then let's see, where is... There's the lunchroom. So the officer would have ran up these stairs, gone this way, and would have seen Oswald about right here. And there's the Coke machine. So Oswald would have been walking away. Alright, is there a 3rd floor? Okay, there's a 3rd floor diagram. There's only one set of stairs there. There's the 4th floor. There's the 5th floor. And then there's the 6th floor. So there is no other stairs except the one in the northwest corner. Elevators are locked. And then there's the 7th floor. Very interesting. All right, let's go on to the next pictures here. All right, those aren't as good. There's the 2nd floor. Mrs. Hine, Geneva Hines. So this is where Geneva Hine was at she's the one that saw Oswald on the second floor drinking a Coke. Right, these are more pictures of the 6th floor. Alright, well, hold on one second. Alright, now this is a good one. This was in the Warren report. It says there was a left palm print, hand pointing southwest, a right palm print, hand pointing west, an right index finger pointing southwest. Now, it's interesting that they never found any fingerprints of Oswald on the rifle or on the boxes that matched up until after Oswald was dead, and then after the Secret Service or FBI agents went to the funeral home and took palm prints and fingerprints of Oswald. So that's interesting. But anyway, anyone could have easily, Oswald could have easily touched any of these boxes, moving them up here, and anyone could have put them over there. So that doesn't mean anything. Alright, hold on one second. Now, this is interesting. From this website, The Girl on the Stairs, talking about Victoria Adams. Saying that she didn't, she went down from the 4th floor down, didn't see Oswald all in that same time period. And there's the stairs there. So if she didn't hear Oswald, wouldn't she have heard the assassination team? And then it says here, not exactly, because even though Officer Baker went running up the stairs, checking floors, it was 35 minutes after the assassination before anyone was on the 6th floor. I don't believe that's correct, because they found the rifle about that time. There were other people up on that floor probably within 10-15 minutes, but that would still give an assassination group time to get out of there. But again, that is the problem. How do you get 3 men on the 6th floor out of the 6th floor and out of the building, all the way down to the 1st floor and out of the building, when Oswald's getting, stopped on the 2nd floor? That is the problem, though. Alright, so we'll keep going. Now, this is interesting. There doesn't seem to be any pictures from inside the Dowtex building. So, this is interesting. But I will make some comments here. You see how they've lined up the shots from the Dowtex building and the Texas School Book Depository into the kill zone. Very, very close. Is very, very similar. Here's another one, a shot from the Dowtex building. And let's see. Yeah, I can't believe there's hardly any pictures from inside the Dowtex building. Now this one here is the shot that hit the curb and the piece of concrete hit Tague. There was a missed shot here. There's the picture of the curb with the nick in it. This one here, you can see people running towards the grassy knoll area. But still, I don't see any pictures inside the Dowtex building. This is where Tague was standing, right here. It hit the curb, concrete flew off and hit him in the face. Still nothing inside the Dowtex building on Google, that is. Hold on one second. Alright, so sometimes when you zoom in on a building, you can find the building and then click on that and it'll give you pictures inside. There's nothing there, but I did find somebody has put a picture here up. Okay, it's been misplaced. This is another street view of Dealey Plaza, but we'll use this one here. Actually, no, this is not Dealey Plaza. This is the opposite Grassino Portico on the other side. You see here? But still, you could have men, observers here, even over here, watching across the street, maybe even with guns, and then you have a good position for an observer to be right on top of this federal post office building right there. But yes, here's another good angle. We'll zoom in on this, and you can see Daltex building, 6th floor. There's the kill zone right there. There's the pedestal that Zapruder was on top of. Here's the picket fence, good shot plates for the shooters. And that would be the kill zone right there. Alright, let's go back. Let's see, there's another one right here. What is this one? Alright, this is inside the Daltex building. This is like some kind of Kennedy art thing going on here. And we can't move around. There's another one. I think this is inside the 6th floor. They've just mislocated it. And there's that freight elevator right there. Let's take a look here. Now we'll go back down to street view. And there is Houston and Elm. So just to point out some things, right approximately about here is where the Cuban went into the epileptic seizure. The ambulance was caused. That could possibly make for distraction. You already have people out front here, you know, to see the president go by. And then you could easily put a van up in this area and then men up the stairs. There were several people caught inside this Daltex building. I believe one of them was like Patrick Hemming, one of the Cuban mercenaries there. Now, one thing that's interesting, when Oswald left, he left straight out of the front entrance of the building, went across the street here, went past the Daltex building, and went straight up the sidewalks all the way up 10 blocks to Eckerd and Elm. It's the county jail right here. It's either here or here. I think this is the county. One of these is the county jail. One's the county records building. And let's see. It'd be a good spot to have a spotter up here, but even better to have a man up here. See, we'll go back this way. And again, it's my contention that if you're gonna have guys shooting on the 6th floor of the depository and they get out, they go down the stairs, come out, there was a dock right here, you would have had a van or a truck or cars or Rambler station wagon right there waiting for them. Same thing here. This shooter team would have come down the stairs, out the back exits here, waiting for a van to take them away in different directions. Alright, so we're going to get We got about 10 more minutes. We're going to get back into Wesley Frazier's statement. And this is another statement that he did. Let me see. I think we hit everything. Yeah. So this one is the one that he did, I believe, yeah, for the Warren Commission, almost 9 months later. Okay. Let's see. Hold on one second. All right, here we go. This is the Warren Commission testimony of Frazier, and we'll get into it. I'm just going to hit certain areas, and we'll go from there. One thing, maybe it's just customary what they did back then. They even do it in the Garrison trials. That they go into all this personal information about the people in the beginning. I don't know if they do that nowadays in trials, but I find it totally useless. To ask them where they worked and where they went to high school and where they lived and all these kind of things. You can have those in a preliminary report, but why does the jury need, if you have a jury, why does the jury need to have that? I mean, why do they care if you have 3 little girls? Okay? Where your grandmother lives, stuff like this. So they spend a lot of time going over this BS, and then they finally get into what's happening there. And Huntsville is a city like about halfway between Dallas and Houston, so he's a country boy, okay? Comes to live with his sister in the big city, and then he gets this job at the school book depository. So he started on the 13th, he says, and let's see if there's anything else of importance here. He's making $1.25 an hour. Finish about 4:45 in the afternoon. You have 45 minutes for lunch. Now he says here, do all the employees have the same lunch hour? Now the ones who work down there filling book orders around where I work now, so we all work the same hours. Some people work up there in the offices, are here as they come in a little bit later. Now, I don't know for sure, but I see primarily the ones who does the same type of work I do. We all start around the same time. So everyone goes to lunch around the same time, about 11:45, 12 o'clock. All right. And this is interesting. So he's talking about how he found out about Oswald and things like this. And then Oswald was telling him he lived in a different location than his wife. He says, had you known his wife before that? Had you ever met his wife, Marina Oswald? No, sir, I never had. Had you ever heard that a Russian girl was staying there in the neighborhood? Well, I say about this time I met him, I knew at the time then, but I didn't think anything about it. Because people travel from one country to the next all the time. All right, so think of it this way. The Soviet Union supposedly is trying to destroy the United States. Here's a girl from Russia. This guy had defected to Russia and came back, and he has nothing to say to Oswald about it. Oh, you lived in Russia? What were you doing in Russia? Or you met your wife in Russia? How did you end up in Russia? Curious minds. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Wesley Frazier wasn't as curious as most people. Most people would be asking, oh my God, you're living in the enemy's country? What's that like over there? Are they all repressive? What's it like living in Russia? You speak Russian? How's Russian different than English? I mean, come on. Most people are going to be a curious cat. But Wesley Frazier just passes it off like it's something that everybody does all the time. The Russians all over the place, and everyone goes and lives in a foreign country, then comes back with a foreign wife. This is not very common, especially in places like Dallas. Maybe in New York, but not Dallas. So this is interesting. And it said, did he ride home with you in your car on weekends? Yes, sir, he did. On Friday nights, right. From that time until November 22nd, did he ride home with you every weekend? No, sir. He didn't every weekend, but that one. And so they go into it and they remind him that it was the 16th, 17th of November, which is the previous weekend. And he said that Oswald told him he had to take a driving test, which is kind of interesting because if Oswald doesn't have a car, he can barely afford food, but why take a driving test? It doesn't make much sense. If you don't have a car, you barely have enough money for food, you're definitely not going to be getting a car, much less gasoline. Why bother taking a driving test? And how is he going to practice? I guess he's practicing with Mrs. Payne's car? It doesn't make much sense. Anyway, so Oswald, and then from what I remember when I was growing up, you had to have a learner's permit first for a year, and then that gave you the ability to drive a car, but you had to have a licensed driver in the car with you, over 18. And then you did that for a year, and then after that, then you could take your driver's test by yourself and get your permanent driver's license. But when was Oswald going to be in a car? Now, we do have testimony from Clinton, Louisiana, where the barber was visited by Oswald, said that Oswald drove up in a car and got out. There was only just one woman in the car, no one else but her and Oswald. She stayed in the car, and then Oswald came in and got a haircut, and then he left in the car. So that's interesting. Alright, so we're almost finished here. And if you think about it, if Wesley Frazier has a car and Oswald is trying to learn to drive, why didn't Wesley Frazier say, hey, would you like to practice driving with my car? Or Oswald say, hey, I would like to practice driving with your car if you don't mind. Never happens. The way Wesley Frazier tells it is that for a month and a half, that he and Oswald were robots that just simply got in the car, okay, Wesley drove them to the school book depository, they never said a word, and they got out and they went to work. And then on weekends, Oswald would get in the car, go home with him, and they were like robots and just looked out the window and never said a word. Now I have known people that are like that don't like to talk, especially some guys, but most people are like, hey, what do you think about this job? Or hey, you were in Russia? Or your wife's Russian? Wow, how did you meet your wife if she's Russian? Oh, you lived in Russia. What's Russia like? Isn't it cold over there? Aren't they undemocratic? Don't they, aren't they oppressive? Were they watching you? How did you learn to speak Russian? That's most normal people would have a conversation like that. But Wesley Frazier seemed to be this guy who's nonchalant. Hey, would you like... He takes the initiative to ask him if he'd like a ride, but then after that, all the conversation drops off and they say nothing. Doesn't make much sense. It's like robot Wesley Frazier and robot Oswald in the car. But they talked about the driver's license, but he never said, hey, would you like to try driving my car, my truck? Nothing. Anyway, and it says here, about the only time you could get anything out of the talking was about babies, He had one, was expecting another. That was one way he had him get the job because his wife was pregnant, and I would always get something out of it when I would ask about the babies because it seemed he was kind of fond of children, because when I asked him, he chuckled and told me about what he was doing about the babies over the weekend, and sometimes we would talk about the weather. Sometimes he would go to work and it would be cloudy in the morning, he would come out after work, and sometimes during the day it would turn just the prettiest day. So he's talking about babies and the weather. Okay? So, I mean, come on. You know, he's talking about the babies and the weather and the family, and then that's going to lead to, well, the wife is Russian, and do you speak Russian, and what's Russia like, and da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da. But no, you know, leaves just clamming up there. It doesn't make much sense. And they're talking about the weather. Well, what's the weather like in Russia? It's cold there? Da-da-da-da-da. That's what most normal people would have a conversation like that. Anyway, so we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep going in the video for like the first half hour, and then testimony after that. And we'll just keep going along here with this boring robotic interview here, okay? All right, take care.